Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The Norscans are no strangers to the cold, but they are in the shadow of the mountains, as the Dawi have marched forth to confront the approaching invaders. So we have myself leading the Norscan forces, and there is going to be Biden's Chosen leading the Dawi. So for the Norscans, it is quite a wide build, as there is a bunch of Marauder great weapons in that front line, mixed in with a pair of just Marauders with shields for a little bit of missile parry. We do have, though, 5 Marauder Hunters with the throwing axes, and they will be supported by 3 more Marauder Horsemen with their own throwing axes themselves. So there's going to be a ton of axes flying through the air, looking to pierce through that Dawi armor. So we also have Wulfric the Wanderer going to be leading the forces. He is going to be bringing Seafang, and he is on his chariot as well, so he gets bonus versus infantry and armor piercing. And we do have a Fimir Balefine of Fire going to be bringing Fireball and Flamestorm. Surprisingly enough, it does have armor sundering. It does have magic attacks, but that armor sundering and armor piercing will also help punch through that Dawi hide. Now, for the Dawi forces, we do have a pair of gyrocopters with brimstone guns up in the sky, but the Norscans have also brought a pair of feral manticores up in the sky to help screen them out and chase them away. For the rest of the Dawi forces, though, we do have a couple miners with blasting charges in that front line, and they'll do quite a number on the Marauders for Norsca with their low armor. And then we do still have the miners themselves to deal with, and in the back we do have a pair of Iron Drakes as well with Trollhammer torpedoes, a very common pick, I guess, against Norsca, with usually expecting to see some large targets. We do have Grombrindle going to be bringing his smoke bomb, and of course Grombrindle has no fear, and it does look like he has his axe as well, the rune helm of Zufbar, actually, so plus 12 leadership around him. But he will be supported by Felix, who is armor piercing bonus versus infantry as well, and he is going to be bringing the Blood Oath, so he gets a little bit of restore plus 8 hit points per second to himself and allies in range. So he's sticking close to Grombrindle, give Grombrindle a bit of regen to boot. And then for the rest of the forces, we do have some Longbeards units that are pretty hard for the Norscans to really cut through, but in the back line it is going to be just some Dwarf Warriors holding down the back line, allowing the pair of Thunderers to really do some good work, as they have opened up already. And we do have a Runesmith as well, who's going to be bringing the Rune of Wrath and Ruin, as well as the Hammer of Karak Draz, giving when engaged in or he recharges when engaged in melee, but it gives minus 30% base weapon damage and minus 40 melee attack to a enemy unit. So that is going to be the armies. So let's get things rolling, as the armies are going to be engaging. As soon as these Norscans do get in range with their Marauder Hunters, they're going to be throwing in quite a few axes the way of the Dawi and the feral manticores. Though they do need to be a little careful. They do need to stay away from the Iron Drakes and even the Thunderers, because they can easily get rampage, and they don't want to be dropping down and allowing these Iron Drakes to really just do a number on them. But the miners releasing their charges, getting a couple volleys off, have been able to do a decent amount of damage to the approaching Norscan horde, doing a decent amount between 4 units, but it wasn't too much. But we do have a overcasted Firestorm in the back doing a ton of damage to these Thunderers. Just look how many units died from that initial cast, and this thing's going to be roaming and wandering for quite some time, since it is overcasted. It has quite a long duration, but it is going to be just kind of arcing its way out. But it does seem to be coming right on back down the line. Might be doing a little bit more damage to some more Dawi forces, and maybe even some friendly forces on top of that. But now all of the Marauder Hunters still going to be throwing away their axes here, as Wulfric the Wanderer going to be arcing his way, looking to be getting engaged as well. And we do have quite a surround off starting for the Norscan forces, as they're getting their Marauder horsemen with throwing axes in that back line. Though a few units have gotten routed off from the Thunderer Fire, and some Iron Drakes as well have gotten these Marauder Horsemen pretty low indeed, but there is still quite a few throwing axes in this department, as these Marauder Hunters are going to be looking to screen out these gyrocopters with brimstone guns away from Wulfric. Don't want them getting any free shots, as the Feral Manicore is going to be diving down on top of the only 2 range units right now. I do hear a Sea Fang as well, going to be going right down the line of these Dwarf Warriors, doing a decent amount of damage, not nearly as strong as it once was, but the Feral Manicore is going to be able to rout off these Iron Drakes with Trollhammer torpedoes, and is going to be shutting down these Thunderers as well, since there is no more range units to really worry about, since that Firestorm did a nice little work on that other unit in the rear. But seeing as these Gyrocopters being taken a bit of fire from these Marauder Hunters, they do elect to engage in melee. Not really melee units though, as they are going to just pretty much avoiding fire right now, but even the back Marauder Hunters are still firing their throwing axes even when the front is engaged there. The rest of the units though, able to clean up the Dawi fairly effectively. Most of all of the range units going to be routing off the field, and even these Thunderers as well are going to start routing themselves. But Grombrindle and Felix going to be trying to push back these Marauder Hunters and potentially even get on top of this Femur Balefiend of Fire. And that will be a very good target for them as well. Femur Balefiend, not exactly the best melee combatant in the world. He's actually just going to try and pull out, seeing those two in such close proximity. But he is still no slouch, as a fireball is going to arc its way up, trying to snipe out some of the Gyrocopters with brimstone guns, trying to assist that Feral Manticore. The Feral Manticore, though, is doing quite well, able to take out some more of these flying menaces, as the other one is dealing with that Runesmith on the ground. So things looking pretty good for the Norskins so far, with all of the armor piercing on the field and the mobility able to clean up the routing units fairly effectively. Also in that back line, able to jump on top of these Iron Drakes and the Thunderers, making sure they do get pushed off once and for all, as the Gyrocopters are being routed off the field in the sky by those Feral Manicores. And Wulfric is still very, very healthy. He's going to drop a Hunter of Champions down onto this Runesmith, who is a little isolated. He was trying to run back to Felix and Grombrindle, though Wulfric the Wanderer does get his own Rune of Wrath and Ruin on top of him, but it was too little too late, as he already did get the charge off, and that Runesmith is just getting pushed farther and farther away from Grombrindle and Felix, as he is likely going to be routing off the field before too long. Only another hit or two, and he should be out of the picture, at least for the time being. And then the Marauder Hunter is still going to be firing in, cleaning up the last of the Dawi infantry right now, as there's only a few Dwarf Warriors left by the looks of things. One Gyrocopter has returned, but that other Feral Manicore is going to be hot on its heels. But the Dawi, seeing that there is all hope is lost, is going to concede, and Norsca will take the battle. A very different approach than what Norsca has traditionally done in this matchup. I know it's definitely a bit different than what I have done. Normally, I would go for at least a little bit of large units, a bit more of the chariots, able to really kind of push through the Dawi line to get into the back line, though instead, with the recent mass changes, that makes it a bit more harder to do, trying to push through very stalwart Dawi lines. So instead, trying out these Marauder Hunters with throwing axes, really the only matchup I think I really bring them in, and so far they've proven to do quite well. We'll take a little look at their values here. So these do cost, I believe, 550, much the same cost as the Marauder Hunters with javelins, and you can see they pretty much all got their value back. Didn't really pay for themselves like twofold or anything like that, but they did quite well. The Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes themselves doing okay values as well, and one of the Feral Manicore is paying for himself. And even that Femur Balefiend, that one Firestorm, able to really roast one of the units of Thunderers, doing quite well there. More of a little distraction, if anything else. It is able to do some decent damage if it does hit, but it is kind of a wild moving vortex spell, so it's a little unreliable, but it's still kind of fun to bring nonetheless. Wulfric the Wanderer really didn't get into engaged too many times. He just kind of cycled in and out on the flanks. He really was trying to avoid those Iron Drakes with Trollhammer torpedoes, as they can do quite the number on him. But otherwise, the frontline infantry got pretty depleted, but still did okay. Now for the Dawi forces, the Gyrocopters unfortunately didn't do so hot. Neither did these Iron Drakes or Thunderers. Rest of the forces kind of a little lackluster as well, really not paying for themselves. Miners did a little decent. At least they got some of their blasting charges off. Otherwise, it was a little lackluster for the Dawi forces. But that is all I'm going to have for you today. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good one.